Hi there, welcome to Boxing Deep Dive. I'm Lyndon Hosking and great to have you along for another episode of Dream Fights. I've been really looking forward to this one. It's my own personal pick. I think I've picked a really good one for this episode and can't wait to get my teeth into it. This is obviously where we match two fighters from different eras against each other and break it all down and reveal who we think wins and why. I'm going to bring in my co-host for this episode, Grant Tassie Brown, Mike Altamura. How are we, guys?
Good, thanks, Lyndon.
All had good weeks, I gather?
Always
Yeah,
nice
not bad,
seeing you
mate.
two gentlemen.
Always, mate.
Tassie looks calm today. Why are you calm today, Tassie?
I got my new beads.
What are they, mate? Are they like rosary beads?
Yeah, Costa Zoo does this all the time. It's
Okay.
just really good.
Serenity now?
Because I'm a bit of a fidgeter. You know what I mean? So, no, pretty good, mate. I got to catch up with Mike the other day. Had Nathaniel May at the gym in Yarraville in Jekyll's gym, which was good. Always good to see Mikey. And I'm still living off the high of kicking Peter's ass the other week. It's probably nearly 2 weeks ago now, but yeah, I'm just on such a high. At 222, I've just shown who the man is. There's no doubt. There's no question. Everyone that watches this show, and thank you, we love our viewers on Boxing Deep Dive. Everyone knows. And I'm the king. I'm the Umro Nuno. I'm number one. There's no doubt. Shout out to Bill Hacking in Norfolk, Tasmania. Good on you, Billy. Mate, I own Peter. He's like a little puppet.
I'm sure he's watching. I'm sure he'll well, let's see if he responds. But Mike, how about yourself, mate? How's the world yours in the world of pro bellum these days?
Has anyone conducted a mental health check on Pete since Tassie's beaten him about 10 weeks straight?
It hasn't been seen, so.
But yeah, things are good on our side, just ticking away, lining up some big fights. Big opportunity for Regis Prograis around the corner against Jose Zepeda for the vacant WBC 140-pound world title. So looking forward to seeing Regis become a two-time world champion. I think he's a hell of a talent, and this is why sanctioning bodies and mandatories and so forth are put in play, because a guy like Regis, if he got stuck on the outer without a world title opportunity, no one's going to just hand or grant one to him again. So this is his way of battling his way back to complete relevancy in the sport.
Let's hope he gets that fight and obviously gets the belt. Now, guys, I've been looking forward to this one. We've had some really good dream fights lately, but I think I've picked one that's got to be one of the best. I think it's been chosen so far, and I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit for it. And I really can't wait to hear both of your predictions, because I think it's going to be one of the toughest
one ever.
Yeah,
toughest ever.
And the one, of course, I'm referring to is probably the lightweight super fight of all time. It is the Hands of Stone, Roberto Duran against PERNELL Sweet Pea Whittaker. Now, guys, I'm probably assuming that this fight would be at lightweight, but I suppose it could be anywhere from lightweight to welterweight. But I think we'll stick with lightweight, because I think Duran wasn't a welterweight for very long. I don't think, was he?
It's a big difference.
Yeah, there is a bit. I think we've got to stay lightweight. I think we've got to stay lightweight.
I actually hate you for this, Lyndon.
Can't wait to hear your tip.
I don't want to pick a win on this, because I fucking like this is the two best lightweights of all time. So I mean, two of the greatest fighters of all time, both in my pound for pound list. So Sweet Pea Whittaker, if you don't know him, you don't know fucking shit about boxing. Mate, Sweet Pea Whittaker is one of my favourites for what he done in his career over many weight divisions. But lightweight, he was undisputed. In the three belt era. Fuck this 4-belt era shit. And Duran, he's arguably known as pound for pound. You know, probably the greatest lightweight of all time. You know, and had probably the greatest run as a lightweight. I think only lost to Jesus who he revenged that, 2 or 3 more times. Before I pass on the mic, mate, this is my two top lightweights.
Mike, you've got to probably, just on an asterisk there, you've probably got to throw in a JC Chavez in there as well as the top maybe 2 or 3 of all time. But that's a different story. But what a fight this is though at lightweight. I mean, you're looking at Duran. We'll get to his record in a second. Whittaker, but it's just a classic matchup, isn't it?
Everything. You've got southpaw in Whittaker, orthodox Duran. You've got Duran, who's an exceptionally good pressure fighter. Whittaker, who's arguably the greatest defensive fighter ever, period. You know, because he did it in an era of very different athleticism to the days of Willie Pep and Maxi Rosenblum and guys like that. So it's intriguing because what you're looking at is, can Whittaker nullify the pressure of Duran, but also Whittaker at lightweight could punch a little bit more and could hold his ground. And one thing I think that's really overlooked with Whittaker historically is he was a really good inside fighter. Just because he was slipping and moving, he wasn't dancing and running on the outside. He was making people miss by millimeters. So could Whittaker stand on the inside and pivot and catch and counter against someone as relentless as Duran, who knew how to savagely attack the body, who at lightweight had really fast feet, who was a really solid combination puncher, vicious, knew how to take guys out of their element, out of their game plan? I think that it's not just looking at what physical attributes these two kids have. It's looking at two guys fighting each other at their best when, you know, arguably both of them are amongst the greatest fight IQs ever. Like you're looking at top 10 boxing IQs ever of fighters. These two have got to be in the conversation. Whoever takes round 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, there's going to be adjustments both sides of the fence. It's an intriguing fight, and I love that you picked it. It's going to be difficult to actually come to the consensus of who we believe the winner will be, but it's a great fight. It's just a tantalising fight.
Yeah, and it's probably been coming for quite some time. I'm surprised no one else has picked it. It's been dangling out there as one of the ones to pick for quite some time. Before we get into all the particulars, guys, we'll go to last week's fight, which was Salvador Sanchez and Marco Antonio Barrera. We put the poll up on Instagram. Sanchez, 60% to Marco Antonio Barrera, 40%. And of those, I think pretty much everyone picked Sanchez by decision. The ones that picked him and the ones that picked Barrera, it's probably mostly probably 50-50 KO. So Salvador Sanchez, 60% to Barrera, 40%. So what do we think of that? Firstly, Tazzy, you happy with that?
Yeah, well, that was my pick, and that was what we I think we sort of had there, Sanchez. So yeah, look, man, it would have been a great fight. I think it would have been a points decision, but I think, you know, the way we stacked them up against each other, I think Sanchez was the winner. So yeah, they got it right. Our lovely, amazing, beautiful viewers. Thank you.
What about you, Mike? 60-40 split's probably about right?
Yeah, it was that kind of fight. I mean, I think we all rolled with Salvador Sanchez, but we all said it was a tight call and it would be a closely contested battle. So I agree with that consensus. The fans are permitted their 40% to pick Barrera.
It would have been a ripper fight. But let's get into this week's super fight, we'll call it. Not just a dream fight, it's a dream super fight, or super dream fight, whatever you want to call it. So let's get into, firstly, the Hands of Stone, Roberto Duran, 103 wins, 16 losses, 70 KOs. A lot of those 16 losses come towards the end of his career. You can see there, the lightweight champion, 72, 78 for both belts. The WBC welterweight champion in 1980, WBA junior middleweight title in 1983, WBC middleweight title in 89. You can see there some of his biggest wins. Ken Buchanan, our own Hector Thompson, Esteban de Jesus, or he lost two first and then beat twice. Carlos Palomino threw in there, a very underrated fighter as well. Sugar Ray Leonard, of course, Pepino Cuevas, Davey Moore, and Iran Barkley, and was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2007. Tazzy, what more can you say about this man? I know we've had him on in a couple of dream fights before, but I never get tired of watching his highlights.
No, we've had him in a few times, mate, because he's that great. I mean, I grew up hearing about Duran from my dad. My dad always said he was the greatest lightweight of all time. Yeah, just a freak, mate. Look, you know, he ruled the lightweight division, but arguably,
yep.
Arguably, yeah, that's it. I am from Tasmania. His biggest win, obviously, of his career was Sugar Ray Leonard when he went up to welterweight and handed the grey Sugar Man his first defeat. So that was obviously his biggest win, and that just propelled him to superstardom. You know, he lost the rematch to Leonard. Leonard obviously, you know, got into the rematch happened quite quickly. I believe Leonard would have beat him anyway. I think Leonard all round is a better fighter. But, yeah, I mean, he got him the first time. And then, look, he went on and, obviously went up in divisions and one multi division went up as big as the guys like Duran Barkley and Davey Moore. Lost to Wilfred Benitez, which is probably a point I want to make on this one. Wilfred Benitez was a very skillful boxer. So he lost to Wilfred Benitez. Tommy Hearns that was a freakish knockout. I mean, Hearns could get a 21. To do it to Duran was a big statement. He gave Marvin Hagler hell, which that's one of the reasons I don't rate Hagler as highly, because a blown up lightweight like Duran can give, even as great as he was, can give Hagler fits and almost beat him. I mean, and I think that really hurt Hagler's legacy, but I mean, great for Duran. He had some shockers too against Robbie Sims and guys like that. Like sometimes he'd put in a bit of a shocker if he wasn't on song in training camp, and we all know that he loved he lived the wild life and loved the nightlife and parties, and he was a king in Panama, and I believe he spent a lot of time in Miami as well. So, but I mean, look, as a lightweight, which is what we're talking about right now, he was just a beast, and he got revenge over his only loss to the Jesus. I think he beat him 2 or 3 times and stopped him as well. And but yeah, look, hands of stone. Obviously, in my top 10 of all time, and him and Whittaker, obviously, 1 and 2, whoever we choose, who wins this, is the 2 greatest lightweights of all time.
Mike, how about yourself? Thoughts of Manos Di Piedra? Because I mean, back in the day, he was just at this weight, he was a killer, wasn't he?
Just such a relaxed infighter. I mean, there he is dismantling Ken Buchanan with a low blow. Ironically, he knocked him out. And next, it was the WBC lightweight world title. But just so relaxed and such a fluid puncher. The other thing is too, in a 15-round era, his stamina would last for days. He scored a lot of late round stoppages. He was dangerous at all times, and he's a little bit deceiving, Duran, when you go back and watch him, because sometimes you see early in fights and you'd be thinking to yourself, maybe, is this guy really all he's cracked up to be? And then once the nervous system warms up and he starts pecking his shots, and you just see his little tactics, catching, rolling, just how pinpoint he was, especially to the body, pinpoint puncher to the body, and then was so precise, bring it up to the head. And I think that all of his class really come out later in career when he went up in weight and was taking out much bigger men, just based on one, fight intelligence, but two, I think just willpower. He had incredible willpower, Roberto, especially when he was switched on. And probably the 80s was a hot and cold era, because it really was whether he was motivated or not. But if we're judging him at lightweight, I don't think any other lightweight historically has had as long a run of dominance as what Duran did in the 70s.
100%. Let's get on to his opponent, PERNELL Sweet P Whittaker. 40 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw, 17 KOs. You can see there a multitude of titles from lightweight right up to junior middleweight. His biggest wins there, decisions over Roger Mayweather, Greg Haugen, Jose Luis Ramirez, Azuma Nelson, Jorge Paez, Buddy McGirt, and he had the draw with Chavez. And also, the same year as Duran, 2007 International Boxing Hall of Fame. So, Tazzy, I know he was in your top 10 of all time, so I'll let you explain what was so great about Sweet P.
Yeah, I love Sweet P. He's one of my favourite all-time fighters in the 90s, which is me growing up in boxing. It was him and Roy Jones, like 1 and 2 to me. Mate, he was just amazing, mate. Like when Mike touched on it, his ring IQ and he's great, in fighting. He was a boxer, but he wasn't a runner. He wasn't a guy that would, like, say, a Riggindale. He wouldn't run on the outskirts of the ring. He'd be he'd like you to come to him and counter, but he'd be sort of not that far away from you. He'd make you miss with some of the moves we're seeing right now, and then off and off he'd make you pay, and then he'd make a little angle and get around you, and he just literally the art of hit and not be hit, which that is what boxing is about. for anyone that doesn't know boxing, it's hit, not be hit. If you can hit your opponent many times and you don't get hit hardly at all, well, that's what boxing is. I mean, and he's just great ring generalship. He beat some real top guys, mate, like Azuma Nelson beat him easy. And look at Azuma, who Azuma Nelson was. Early in his career, beat Roger Mayweather. Wins over Buddy McGirt twice. Great wins there. This fight here against Chavez, which is probably the closest idea of how Duran Whittaker would go, because Chavez is a lot like Duran. Great body puncher, great pressure, tough as nails, and a guy that had very hard to hit offensively. So I think the fight with Chavez, even though him and Whittaker were both probably a bit later, it's probably the best measurement of the Whittaker-Duran fight. And also, too, Duran beating Leonard. Leonard was another fast fighter like Whittaker, probably had more power than Whittaker. But, I mean, it went on and he fought a prime De La Hoya. De La Hoya was probably lucky to get that. He went up and beat, was it Vasquez, was it?
Yeah.
He beat Pineda, he beat Brazier, he beat Paez, Wilfredo Rivera. He was just one of the greatest of all time, mate. And he's what boxing's all about. Hit, not be hit. 84 Olympic gold medalist. And look at some of these moves he's doing, mate. Like, very hard to fight. And I think he should have won that Chavez fight. That wasn't a draw, in my opinion. So, can't say much more about him. He literally, ranks as in my top 10 best fighters that ever lived. And as I said, mate, he'd give Duran hell. It's a great matchup.
Yep. Mike?
Yeah, just a really solid jab. And just as I say that, you see him there just drilling that adversary with the jab. I mean, Whittaker had a really good jab because he could throw it so many different paces. He could throw like a real stiff jab to keep you in your tracks, and then that one there on De La Hoya, just touch him with it, keep him off balance, keep him guessing, and then every so often he would throw a whipping short overhand left just to keep his opponent honest. He was very unpredictable though off the jab, and even when he was dipping, he didn't have predictable patterns of how he dipped and what he would throw offensively. Sometimes you'd dip and remain there and move. Other times you'd dip and throw an uppercut. Other times you'd throw a hook from the other side. I think that Whittaker's best attribute was his unpredictability with his offense coming off of those defensive movements.
He had a bit of everything. And I think, too, there was a little bit of a myth about him, too, wasn't he, Mike, that he was a bit of a runner. But if you look at the fights, he never really ran. He gave him different angles and that sort of stuff, but he wasn't a runner, was he?
Not at all. Not at all. He was a defensive craftsman. He was very good at just making people miss by millimeters and inches on the inside. And the thing is as well, like the reason why he lost so few rounds throughout his career, outside of a couple controversial fights, all the way through to really the De La Hoya fight, with Chavez he won most rounds. With Jose Luis Ramirez first time around he won most rounds. But the reason why he dominated most fights was because even if his punch volume was low, he was standing in the pocket and catching and countering everything. It's not even that he was giving the judges an impression that he was being too defensive by moving, because he was only moving millimeters and drawing his opponents in. He was staying flat-footed at times and just pivoting and dipping and moving. Like I said, there's just so many different tricks and traits to his defensive craft, and that's why I still feel, even though so many people, like Tassie said, Tassie rates him top 10 all time, but I still think a lot of people in this era underestimate how great the man was.
He was. Well, because I picked it, I get to go first this week, and I think I'm going to just totally kick over the apple cart in this one, because it was a great idea to pick the fight. Patting myself on the back about how clever I am and all that sort of stuff, until it went to actually having to come up with a winner. But look, again, I run the risk of vitriol against me, but I really think PERNELL Whittaker wins this fight. I think Roberto Duran, he's just obviously he's a legend, and he could punch, he could box, he'd do it all. But if anyone was going to upset Duran's rhythm, I suppose you'd call it, or his aura, or whatever it might be. It's PERNELL Whittaker. And I look at probably a little bit. I know it was a little bit controversial with the Sugar Ray Leonard's second fight that he made Duran miss, because I know Duran with the conditioning and all that sort of stuff, and whether they forced him into taking it too soon after the first one, all that sort of stuff. But I think it gave a little bit of a blueprint that you could frustrate Duran. I think if anyone's going to frustrate Duran more than Leonard, it's 100% PERNELL Whittaker. He has the speed, he has the angles, he just has every single thing that it would take to beat Duran. And I know we just think the world of Duran, and it'll take a very special fighter, especially at lightweight. But I think if anyone could do it, it's PERNELL Whittaker, and I'm picking him to win a 12-round decision over Hands of Stone. So I'm going to let you go next, Tassie. You can tell me that I don't know shit about boxing, but it's up to you.
No, I love it that you picked Whittaker, and it shows great. It shows a lot of your character that you picked Whittaker. I reckon that's, I mean, look, you went and made it, yeah, and I want to pick him as well. And I'm going to say this, guys. If they fight at lightweight, which that's what we're saying, I'm saying Duran wins a split points decision. If they fight at welterweight, Whittaker wins.
Okay.
So if we're going to say lightweight, the dominance of Duran at lightweight, I can't.
What about light welterweight? In between.
Don't do that to me. Don't do that.
Are you telling me you're going to sit on the fence?
No, I'm saying Duran wins
at lightweight. Okay.
Yeah, that's what the thing is.
Yeah.
But if it's a welterweight,
yeah,
I'm going to go with Whittaker.
Yeah, good point, actually.
Lyndon. You made a good point, Lyndon, with the no muss. If anyone could do what Leonard done, frustrate him, it's Whittaker. Chavez is a bit more of a styled fighter like Duran. Probably a little bit different, but very pressure, body puncher, and Whittaker, I think, schooled Chavez. And I mean, so look, I absolutely love Whittaker. I prefer Whittaker to Duran. Put it this way, I've got Duran ranked high in my top 10 because of his accomplishments. As my favourite fighters, I love Duran, but Whittaker's in my top. Like I'm talking Roy Jones, De La Hoya, Whittaker, Costa Zoo. That's pretty much it. So, but the show is about lightweight, so I'm going to go with Duran on a split decision. But as I said, I can easily have gone Whittaker.
It's a tough one, isn't it? When you've got two fighters that you love and respect so much, and you put them against each other. But we've got to tip a winner, and that's. I
just can't go past Duran at lightweight.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah, no, totally understand, mate. Mike, you're the circuit breaker here. Who wins and why?
I just look at styles make fights, and I think that undoubtedly Duran's the greater lightweight in history. I don't think anybody could ever argue that he's the greatest lightweight of all time. I just think that Whittaker stylistically matches up really well against him. I think his dimensions suit. I think the Whittaker's height, Whittaker's ability to duck and weave inside and make him miss and time him in between, to not get drawn into Duran's counter traps, to not get panicked if Duran lands a good 1-2 or a good combination. Also, I think being a lefty takes away a lot of Duran's body work on the right side. I think that Whittaker will be in closer proximity to catch and counter either with his own right hook or his own short left hands. I just see Whittaker winning like 7 rounds to 5. I think it's a very tight nip and tuck affair. Could even be controversial because Duran's probably throwing more volume. But I just think it's just one of those fights that stylistically matches really well for Whittaker. I think that someone maybe a bit longer, a bit craftier could give Whittaker loads of trouble at lightweight. Someone that forced him to have to make the moves, to inch forward, to be the aggressor. I think with Duran, a lot of his craft will play into what Whittaker does so well. But because of Duran's greatness, he'll make adjustments as the fight rolls on, and it'll be a very tight affair. What
a fight it'd be, though. Look, you hit it on the head there, mate, that Duran is probably the better, well, I think we all agree, he's history's greatest lightweight, but styles do make fights, and that's where I was coming from as well, that he just has all the everything that you would need to beat a fighter like Duran, Whittaker has it. And I didn't even mention the southpaw style as well, because that's just another thing on top. But I think the thing is we can't. It's just one of those fights where you sort of almost hate having to tip a winner, but you're happy with it and have no dramas with if someone picked the opposite. You know, we've had some fights where we think some people are crazy, but I think in this instance, I think we all agree that it will just be one of the best fights in history to ever be made. And
Lyndon, it's the toughest matchup ever on this show.
Yeah, it'll have to be up there. Yeah.
No, it is, mate. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Costas who beats Pacquiao. Sorry, Peter. Mate, this is the toughest one to pick.
Yeah.
If you know boxing like we all do.
Yeah. How good would it have been? But anyway, that's it for this episode. Yeah, Duran and Whittaker. Whittaker gets the chocolates. I think, Mike, we might be back to you next. Have you thought of someone? Or
Mike.
Yeah, so I think that a fitting fight to discuss, given the recent passing of the legend, the former WBC featherweight world champion Johnny Famagin, would be the Australian super fight that was bandied about for many years throughout that same era between him and his very good friend Lionel Rose. So, as you know, Lionel Rose outboxed Harada for the world championship of bantamweight. Harada moved up to featherweight, lost a controversial decision to Famo, but then Famo stopped him in 14 rounds in the rematch in Tokyo. So, also Lionel, everybody knows, was monstrous for bantamweight. Later went up to 135, beat Guts Ishimatsu, future WBC lightweight world champion. So there can't be any of this discussion that Lionel was too small physically or whatever. I just think him and Famo is the ultimate fighters fight, the ultimate fan fight.
You guys, both.
Two defensive specialists, two great fighters. I'm intrigued to see who you boys are going to pick, because I'm telling you in all honesty, I don't know who I'm going to pick.
Yeah, that's a hard
probably
fight.
Amongst two of my top 5 all-time fighters.
Mikey, lucky you done this today and didn't do it Sunday, because I might have give you an uppercut.
It's
She was in my car.
Because we've had the other, probably the biggest Aussie dream fight of all time was obviously Lester Ellis and Jeff Fennick, but this one, actually it's funny because every week on the Talking Boxing show, I have a little bit of a topic or whatever, and next week was actually going to be the biggest Australian or top 5 Australian fights never to be made, and that was going to be top of the list. So,
Can I say something already, guys?
Yep.
It's nothing to do with my pick. But God bless my 2 heroes, my father and grandfather that aren't with us. My grandfather always said Famo, because my grandfather was he'd always pick the boxer.
Yep.
And my dad always said Lionel. So that's at the dinner table.
Well, there you go.
God bless them both.
I'll tell you something really interesting. My dad was scheduled to fight Famo, and thankfully for him, the fight was called off. Didn't happen, but he sparred both of them. And I know Famo wasn't a big puncher, but Lionel, given the fact, I think Lionel had under 20 knockouts, maybe 17 knockouts in his career, I think in 41 wins. My dad reckons Lionel's in the top 2 or 3 guys, top 2 or 3 guys in terms of punching power he ever sparred, and Lionel was only a bantamweight. My dad fought at like 130. So that's the interesting part too, that when you really weigh up the two of them, undoubtedly Famo was the better defensive fighter, but Lionel's probably the heavier-handed guy, which you wouldn't think when he's a bantamweight moving up.
It's an interesting one. And Tassie, you said your dad and your granddad had opposite sides of the fence. So I'm really intrigued to see who you actually go for next week. But look, it's a ripper fight, and mate, that's probably one that's surprising. We've been doing this for nearly 12 months that we haven't actually come up with that one. So that's a ripper.
And what's Mike's legendary fight?
Oh,
the classic fight. Yeah, have you got someone for that as well, or?
For our classic fight, I still got to think of it.
Yeah, that's all right.
I want to make sure that I've got a doozy of a melon scratcher for you guys, so that I spare Taz's rough, because I know that, if Peter's not going to be partaking in these shows anymore, that Taz is going to be looking for his next prey, so I don't want to be his prey.
He will. Just be careful if he challenges it to a quiz,
Well,
it's not happening. African boxing, or it's not happening.
I'm going to tell you something, Mike. I've heard from the grapevine they're digging up. They're trying to dig up Bert Sugar to go against me in the quiz.
I ironically, right, this is off topic, so it probably shouldn't even be part of the show, but I have, Bert Sugar produced a book of lists about 10 years ago with Teddy Atlas. And I'll try and dig it out because it might give us a little bit of inspiration for certain themed shows that we could come up with as well.
Yep, love it, because any new concept's good. And obviously, we've just done the special was a classic fight, but it was more of an infamous fight. It was a special on Lewis Resto and Billy Collins as well.
What's the feedback about the amateurs the other night?
Very, very good, mate. Very good. I don't know shit about boxing, apparently, but yours were very well received. So,
really?
Yeah. It'd be interesting to get yours at some stage too, Mike.
You was only an Olympian.
All-time Australian amateur boxers list?
Of the modern... Well, I did mine of the modern era. Tassie did his of all time, which was probably a really good way. I didn't really know enough about Wayne Devlin and Tony Madigan, so I didn't put him in.
How dare you? How dare you?
I'm just sticking to what I know. But hey, it'd be great to have you on.
You were sticking down Bendigo, being the king of Bendigo.
Yeah, I was. So maybe we'll get you on the on Talking Boxing, or maybe we'll do a standalone show where we go through. We'll just do it all again.
I don't know amateurs.
All right.
I don't know Australian amateurs.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll think of something like.
I know him pretty well. I can tell you number one all-time Bendigo amateur is on this show right now. I can tell you that.
There's not many from Bendigo. Actually, there was. I know we're getting way off topic here. This is Dream Fights, but we're talking Australian amateur boxing here. There was another very, very good fighter back in the day named Desi Dogood. Went to the 1960.
Yeah, I saw someone mention it.
Rome Olympics. I knew Desi really well. He was a legend. Great Indigenous fighter as well. I think he might have won a bronze medal as well at the Commonwealth Games. But a great guy, great boxer. So it's a privilege to obviously be with him from Bendigo.
Now, mate, I'd be fucking lucky, very lucky to be in the. I wouldn't even be in the top 10 Tasmania fighters of all time. We've had that many good fighters.
Yeah.
I tell you now, mate. So I'm not even in the top 10 of my state, mate, because we've had a lot of good fighters.
Well, we'll think of some other different topics to come up as standalone shows anyway, because there's plenty of different concepts out there, and I was really...
And before we go, guys...
Yep.
I'm not joking. Is Peter back in the Philippines?
I don't know. No idea.
Oh. Mike?
I got no idea.
I think it might be time to end the show.
You've been talking to him more than me via your quiz battles. I don't know.
I think it might be time to go before Tassie said something he shouldn't. But anyway, really appreciate you guys being on. Great tips tonight, guys. I really love doing the show every week with you guys and seeing what's going to come up next. So again, really appreciate you giving up your time. I think we spend as much time off camera as well as on it. It's a real privilege to do it with you guys. So until next week, stay tuned and thanks to everyone for watching.
See you guys.